Hi everybody, I'm Helen Towers, class of 1983, and I am totally thrilled to be sitting here with Harald Sunde, otherwise known as Harald Gunnar Sunde, my classmate. And I am totally thrilled to be sitting here chatting with you about life for the last 40 years. We live in completely different parts of the world, and I want to hear about what you have been up to.
And my name is, as Helen said, Harald Sunde, Harry or Sunday, you can choose whatever. Thank you very much, Helen, for inviting me. I don't know why you invited me, but I feel very proud for that. And yes, our ways have separated since we left Dublin, and you have gone to one extreme maybe with regards to population density, and I have gone to the other extreme. But it's great to be back then and meet the lads and see Dublin again for me. So I'm very happy to be back here at the RCSI.
Great. I just want to show exactly where Harry lives. This is a map that he gave me that shows the very tippy tip of Norway up here, and he lives in Kirkenes. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
Whatever.
And I live in New York City. So tell me a little bit about this area of Norway that you live.
Well, according to the Irish Times, the weather forecast in Irish Times, it shows Europe, and it doesn't show the area at all. They chop off half of Europe, all the northernmost part, most important part, of course, of the continent. So it's a remote area. The county is called Finnmark. It's about 60% of the size of the island of Ireland and contains 75,000 people. So we have plenty of fresh air, plenty of space, and not too many people. But still, we're trying to run a society and also run a healthcare system. And it has certain challenges which are different from more densely populated areas.
Did you live there all your life, or did you move there from a different part of Norway?
No, I grew up in Oslo. So I'm a southerner, and my accent is still a southern accent.
Sing song?
in Norway then. But we had a lottery after medical school to get into internship. And I think I got number 148 out of 150, so I was the last one to choose. And then there were only those remote places left. So I thought, okay, I can just as well go to Kirkenes, and I went there and I met my wife and I settled, and now I have lived there for 40 years. And I think life in that part of Europe is exciting. It's very interesting. And,
tell me a little about the climate, because I'm conscious that it's extremely different from our temperate time zone here.
Right. We have very big difference between the seasons, of course, because the further north you get, the colder it is in the winter, and well, it's not really that warm in the summer. But we have 2 months where we cannot see the sun. The sun is below the horizon, so it's quite dark then, from 20th of November till 20th of January. And then we have 2 months in the summer where the sun is above the horizon all the time, so we have midnight sun. And it doesn't get dark at all.
And what does that do to your mood?
Then people tend to hibernate a little bit, like the bears, in the dark time, and spend a lot of time indoors. But in the summer, then you can do whatever all day and night round. So some people find it difficult to sleep. I don't. But of course, there is so much more energy in society when the sun is up all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but that kind of gives life. I think, like in Ireland, I remember it was scattered showers and sunny spells throughout the year.
The same weather forecast all my life.
maybe a little bit grayer and darker in the winter, a little bit lighter in the summer, but much of the same season. While where I live now, the winter and summer are definitely very different.
And I've always been interested in what brought the Norwegians to Dublin. How did you choose RCSI to come to for med school?
Well, I was too stupid to get into medical school in Norway, so I didn't have good enough grades from secondary school. And it was a little bit easier to get into the RCSI. I heard about it, actually my neighbor in Oslo, he was studying here 4 years ahead of us. So he told me and I applied and I got in. So, and also we do have a public finance aid for students, which helped us a lot because it was expensive to study here. In Norway we have free tertiary education, while here the tuition fee
at that time,
was quite expensive even at that time.
Interesting. Yes, I think people have sometimes said that the college students at that time and going to the College of Surgeons were those that might not have gotten into other colleges, but we were the ones who wanted to do medicine, right? At all costs, we were prepared to go to wherever it was going to make it happen. And I think we've ended up being much more sort of persistent and it's paid off in the long run. I think many of us are very fulfilled in what took us perhaps a little longer to get done, but it's been a good journey.
And I'm very happy that we had such an international class.
Yes.
And it's great when we meet together now. There are people coming from all over the world, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, I grew up in Dublin, so for me, coming to the College of Surgeons was like entering the United Nations. It was the most eye-opening, wonderful experience for a kid who grew up in Ballsbridge. Actually, I was born in Earlsfort Terrace, and I went to school across the green and in Loreto, and here I am, or here I was.
And then you ended up in New York.
And then I ended up in New York. So love brings you a long way.
Right.
And College of Surgeons is responsible for far more than medical school education. The number of romances that have blossomed within these walls, I'm sure it continues. I hope it continues, right?
Right.
So yes, I met my husband here, and he's from New York. So I did not think when I grew up here, and even in college, that I would end up in New York City.
No.
But yeah, it's been a marvelous trip.
So where is home for you now? Is home New York or is it
That's
home
a deep
Ireland?
question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Home is sometimes where I'm not, I refer to home here when I'm there and there when I'm here. And basically it's probably where the closest family are now.
Right.
So, it is over there right now because my parents have died. I have siblings here, I have family and nephews and nieces who I love to visit, and I love them to visit me. But I think we'd have to say probably home is New York now, and
Right.
will likely stay that way.
Have you any plans for moving back to Ireland when you retire?
Not at this time, no. I have American children,
Okay,
and
right.
I have an American family now, and I've been blessed by the welcoming that I had early on from Wally's parents and family and sister-in-law. So we've nephews and these over there. So I feel
Right.
like it is a life I've created over there or chose. I left with a few tears, I'll have to say. That first airplane ride going over there, I knew this was the exile.
Right.
And I'm a much better exile in some ways. Like James Joyce, you think more fondly of Ireland when you're at a distance.
I'm sure you're a good ambassador to Ireland, aren't you?
I hope so. I hope so, yeah. So anyway, so tell me, what have you been up to over the last 40 years? Are you doing, or did you, or you're still working, right? Excellent. So are you doing the kind of medicine you always thought you would practice?
I never knew what kind of medicine I was going to practice, so I was quite open, but I ended up being a GP. And that was because then I didn't have to do that much work out of hours, late hours, because that was like maybe 1 day a week or something. While if I went into some hospital specialization, it would be I would be far more busy in the evening and nighttime. So that was the reason. And I loved being a GP. And actually back in 2001, I think it was, we established a new medical center in Kirkenes with 10 doctors. And that was a big medical center, primary healthcare center at that time, and even in little Kirkenes, in Finnmark. So, we run that as a kind of, actually as a private company, but with public financing. So everyone looks at it as if we are a public body. Yeah, but it was actually run private. But it was the only medical center in Kirkenes, and so we had all the patients in the municipality, and I think we catered well for them, and it was the medical center worked very well, you know. So I was very proud of establishing that and make it work that well.
You're right on the border, right, of Russia, Finland, Norway. So what does that mean to, you know, is your GP population coming across the border, or is it just the immediate Norwegian population there?
It's just the people living in the municipality. We may every now and then have a Russian seaman or whatever if they are ill. But it's a mixed population. We have Russians, we have the Sami people, we have people that have their traces from Finland. So there is a mix of culture and languages in that area. Has always been, many hundred years back. So
do you speak a little bit of everything?
I speak a little bit of the Sami language, and a few words of Finnish and Russian, but that's not worth anything. But actually, it's been a great change in that area, because after the Soviet Union dissolved in around 1990-91, before that the border was closed, and there were only a few people getting across the border for official visits, etc. Maybe some cultural exchange. I think it was like 2,000 border crossings per year. And then after the Soviet Union fell, and then the relationship across the border became gradually much better, and it wasn't that much control and censorship on the Russian side, and we made friends, and we had a lot of good collaboration within health and other areas, and for a while it was almost 400,000 border crossings per year instead of 2,000. You know, so it was almost like a fading border, so to say, that the two neighboring municipalities kind of grew together. Of course, there is a strict border, and you have to have a visa to get across, but we got friends, close friends, and now it's all stopped.
Stopped again, yeah.
It's terrible.
It's a sad state of affairs right now, isn't it?
So we just hope that this war comes to an end, and so that we can gradually try to improve and restore the relationship with our neighbors. But just now it's all frozen, and nothing is happening across the border. And I had been I thought it was always exciting to live next to Russia, because it's a big country. It has a great culture and authors and music and vodka or whatever, you know. And
no Guinness.
So no Guinness, no. Oh yeah, actually I did have Guinness in Murmansk. That was terrible, really. I complained about it. It was no good. But it's exciting to live at the border where we have a culture which is that different from the Norwegian one, and still that close, you know. So we had friends coming from Oslo, and we went for a weekend in Murmansk, you know, and that was something quite different. So now it's all closed. But we are collaborating with the Finns instead. So yeah, but that's the way things are.
So when you came to Ireland and you finished your medical school education, did it translate directly back to Norway, or were there misunderstandings, or was it a natural transition to get back into Norway and practice medicine?
It was actually quite easy, and I mean, patients are the same, and diseases are more or less the same. But there was one misunderstanding that happened once, because there was a fellow, he was a pilot, an airplane pilot, and he needed this medical checkup, and it said I was to control his cranial nerves, you know. So I went through in my head all this, and I came to the facial nerve, you know. And so what you do, you ask a fellow to wrinkle your forehead, you know. And I had learned all this by heart in English. When I came to this wrinkle your forehead, I said, can you wrinkle your forhud? I translated it to forhud. and that's actually foreskin. So I asked him to wrinkle his foreskin, and he looked at me and said, am I supposed to wrinkle my foreskin to be allowed to drive an airplane? And then I I'm sorry, no. And then I got the right word, you know. But so he was wondering where the hell I was,
where you were trained.
how I had trained to be a doctor. So
but you do have to translate everything back into Norwegian.
Yeah, I usually I think in my head I have languages in drawers, you know, and usually I open one drawer and I use that language and I close it and take out the other language. But sometimes when you have to have both drawers open at the same time, some words may go wrong.
They get a little bit mixed up.
Yes. But otherwise, the medical teaching from RCSI was very relevant. Apart maybe from, at least when we studied, we hardly had any general practice.
That's correct.
I had 1 week, which I actually took in Oslo. But I know the students in Tromsø, they are in general practice for 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, they follow a GP for 2 months. And that's quite different.
That gives, I think, a really good taste of what general practice is about. I remember spending a few days with one of the general practitioners out in Dalkey area.
Right.
I ended up visiting my great aunt. She was on his list. Right. So I walked into my great aunt's house as a medical student.
Really? Wow.
It was kind of funny.
But tell me
Ireland's
about
very small place.
Tell me about your professional life and living on Manhattan.
Living in Manhattan. It was a bit of a strange transition, all right. It took probably a couple of years before I truly sort of felt it, that I was settling in. And I work as a neonatologist, so I take care of newborns and some critically ill babies. What I love about it is, you know, everybody has babies in pretty much the same way, and everybody wants them to do well. It's a very neutralizing area to work in, because nobody wishes ill on a baby, right? So we have people who might not have share the same political views, religious views. They might be at extremes of practice of various lifestyles. But when they're sitting in our NICU, in the neonatal intensive care unit, everybody's pretty much a concerned parent or even concerned for the neighboring child. And so it's allowed this wonderful sense that, you know, people are really the same all over. And for me, it's just been the most extraordinary place. New York is a melting pot. Everyone who lives in New York has stories of where they came from or where their families came from. If I meet somebody and they find out I'm Irish, someone might say, oh, I'm Irish too, but it could be 4 generations back, and they don't exactly remember which part of the country they're from. Right. But I just love to ask people where their names came from. You know, I see them at the end of the little isolates, and I'll always ask them, what does it mean if it's a different language, Arabic or Hebrew or whatever. It's fascinating. So I love what I do. I'm thinking about retirement, but I'm not exactly rushing to retire yet. I think my work it's experiential too. You get better at it the more you do it, and the longer you're doing it. Right. So I think it's important to have a few people who have gray hairs on their head to just go, you know, let's just look at this and not be sort of rushing around. Ordering thousands of tests that might not need to be ordered.
Right.
You know, you have to just say, well, let's try and look at what's the most common or the most likely thing that's going on here.
And to be a good clinician.
And try and be a good clinician, and try and be a little sort of circumspect about what you're actually doing with the babies and their families. And that's the other element of baby care, is that obviously the baby is your patient, but they're not the only person, right? You're dealing with parents and sometimes grandparents. So there's a huge area of sort of communication and just sitting with people and hearing what their worst worries are. That's one of my favorite questions, is like, what do you worry about the most? Because it might not be what I'm worried about.
Right.
You know? So unless we actually ask them, and it's something, when you're teaching this next generation, it's, you know, don't make assumptions about it. We don't know what people are thinking. And people, where there are critical decisions to be made, families can go 180 degrees in what they will choose to do. So, you know, it puts you in a position of accommodating families' values and their choices perhaps they're not mine. So there are multiple layers of the complexity of taking care of small, critically ill babies where big decisions have to be made. And I find that engrossing, and I always have. And I was drawn to it in the rotunda. I think I used to go feed babies on one of the rotations because there's something about that baby's cry that just, I went like this to it. And I've pretty much been going to it since.
That's interesting.
My children tell me stop embarrassing them when they were young, because I would walk down the street engaging with every child I met. They go, Mom, you're embarrassing us. Stop. You don't have to engage with every child you see on the street.
Well, it seems as if you have ended up in the right job then.
I did.
Yeah.
It took a couple of years. I knew I didn't want to do adult medicine. And then here in Ireland, paediatrics is a postgraduate area. They're very respectful of children. You won't have medical students and junior unpracticed people working with small children here. You have to have some experience under your belt before you work with babies. And I admired that when I finally got to it, but it also was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Yeah.
Right.
So that's so really I did NICU here and I did NICU in New York. So that in fact was the part that probably kept me anchored and secure in that the work I was doing, which was a valuable part to me, I was able to continue it in both places, or continue on in New York what I was doing here.
Right.
And I think that made the transition easier to a different country and different world.
But being from Ireland, being a foreigner in America, is that a status, high status, or would it do?
No.
Some people call you kind of, oh, you're a foreigner, you don't understand.
You get everything. I remember walking the children to school and somebody asked me, was I the nanny?
Okay.
And I'm the mother, but I can understand there are a lot of Irish nannies.
Okay, right.
But no, I don't think there's a status, because everyone is really from somewhere else there.
Right.
So it really is this huge melting pot of people from different places. And it's really more about how you present yourself and how you greet and meet people and treat them. And I think there is something lovely about there not being such great sort of status. You don't know who you meet. You don't know who they are or where they are or what they're doing. Everybody's casually dressed. Everybody is walking through. They don't dress in three-piece suits.
Oh.
You don't see so many doctors in three-piece suits over there. Certainly not in pediatrics.
Oh.
It's quite casual, but it's great.
And where is America moving, especially the US? I think it's seen from Europe. It seems to me as if democracy is fragile in America, and it looks scary from the outside. Is it scary?
It's scary from the inside.
Yeah.
It really is. I think the entire country is becoming so politicized, and you almost have to state your politics up front. It has divided families. It has divided communities, towns, cities, states, you name it. It's a very, very strange time to live in, and not lovely to look on for our children. My daughter was almost prepared to leave when the man got in the last time.
Right.
And I think there's this awful fear that he might actually get in again, and it's a terrifying concept. He's he's a fraud, and he's not what you would like to see as the leader of a major nation like America. So it's going through some very shaky times right now.
Yes, it is, certainly.
It is lacking in this kind of moral compass and people standing up to going, that's bullshit, stop saying it, it's wrong, don't do it. They all are fencing, they're all sitting on the fence and trying to work out what's the correct political safe thing to say or do. And that is just allowing madmen come up through the ranks. They're also getting very old. So, it is interesting that we talk about retirement in our late 60s and we're looking at politicians in their 80s looking for re-election.
American politicians are old, certainly. Yeah.
Many of them.
Yes.
And it's fearsome. I think if you become a prominent person or prominent, politician there, they're out to destroy you in some way. So who would step up to do that when everybody's just going to be looking through your litter or looking through your family life or trying to find some scandal? It is a really drag you down kind of approach sometimes.
Yeah.
They need to do better. They need to be able to separate the job of policy and administration and doing that from the people. They just need to get the work done and then leave the people alone. There are some very good people, but it is in a very dangerous place right now, America.
I guess
and it's losing
election.
the respect that it had as this kind of leader.
Certainly.
Nobody's going to have any respect if that man gets in again. I won't even name him.
No, that's okay.
You know how I feel.
But I even tried. I'm a local politician myself, So
I want to hear more about that too. Well, what brought you into politics?
No, I was asked actually to. I've always been a lefty. Everyone in the class knows that, So they used to call me the commie or whatever they used to call me. But I feel comfortable in what we call the Socialist Left Party in Norway, and I've become member of the municipality council, elected, and there is a new election now in a couple of weeks, and I'm on the list, and I'll be in for the next.
So you're still active
period
doing
too,
wonderful.
yeah. And now I'm going to have time for it too. But it's kind of my way into politics. That was through environmental issues, etc. But I think also to reduce the inequalities in society. There are many people in Norway have become extremely rich, and there's a gap which is broadening between the richest and the poorest, and I think it's very important for a society to try to reduce that gap and make the society a more equal society.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and then so I kind of feel at home in the Socialist Party, And
do you have a portfolio? Do you have areas? It's climate or it's environment? Or
yeah, that's
that you work on.
Yeah, it is. But then again, it's most big issues are of course decided by the Norwegian Parliament and not by a municipality council, But it's fun to be a part of it. I think it's interesting. It's being a part of society, and it's a privilege, and it's a
responsibility,
and it's a burden sometimes too, because
sure.
there's a lot of things I have to read and try to understand and get into. But it's interesting, so I like it.
I think that's wonderful when physicians are able to encompass a little bit more into their lives like that.
Right.
I think that there is. You do know the people. Like as a GP, people are open. They'll come to you with their medical problems, but in that process, you'll kind of get to know them. I think a little bit better. Yeah. So you have your ear to the to the ground, if you like.
Yes.
And that has to help from a political point of view.
But then again, I'm not any longer a GP. I quit that job 12 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm now medical director or medical advisor to the CEO of the health trust running the secondary healthcare in Finnmark County. So I left my stethoscope 12 years ago. And so some people ask me, you stopped being a doctor? And I said, no, I did never stop being a doctor. I'm still a doctor. I'm a medical director, and I use my medical education every day. But I don't use it on single patients, I don't measure their blood pressure.
On the system.
It's on the system to be sure that we have a good emergency service, that we have a good service for surgery and internal medicine and whatever. And there are a lot of choices and priorities that has to be done in running such a company, and we have altogether 1,700 employees. Wow! So and
that's quite an enterprise.
And I use my medical education from RCSI every day. So I never stop being a doctor. I tell those people who ask me, but I will then stop being a doctor in about 1 year from now, because I'm about to start to step down. And so by next summer, I'll probably be retired, and then I'll be a full-time grandfather. I have 3 children and 3, soon 4 grandchildren.
That is wonderful. I'm just a little bit jealous. Nothing yet.
And also, I'll probably have more time to write books and whatever. So, and maybe do some more skiing and
More skiing.
Yeah. So.
So you wrote a book.
I wrote a book. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about this book you wrote.
It's a book about Norwegian-Soviet collaboration and intelligence groups in Finnmark County during Second World War. So it's
military history.
It's military history, but it's actually civilian resistance against the Nazi occupants. And then,
where did that start?
No, because we found this one cave where 3 people had been up in the mountains, not too far away from where I live, and it was full of old batteries, and even a hand grenade a Soviet hand grenade was there. That was back in 2005. So I managed to write that story. Nobody had actually heard about this group before. That was up in that area.
Tell me it was not a live hand grenade.
It was, yes. It had to be taken care of by the army. But and then I traveled around to see all the other places where these intelligence groups had operated. So it became a book. And then I was asked in 2019, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov came to Kirkenes, and he was presented with the book. And he was very happy that I had put forward the Norwegian-Russian joint history in that way. So, and then a year and a half later, I got a medal from the Russian Department of Defense.
Wonderful.
That was in the autumn of 21. And then the war broke out. And so 1 week after the war broke out, I gave the medal back. I just told the Russians I cannot keep such a medal. And I don't think they liked having that medal returned. I don't think so.
But you needed to do that.
I needed to do it.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a stand and a very personal stand, and I think.
But I kept the diploma. I didn't return that, so I can have that. I can show that to my grandchildren.
There you go.
But the medal, it's given back to them, so they can recycle it or do whatever they want to do. I cannot wear a medal which is given by the Russian Department of Defense, the same people attacking Ukraine. No. So that's life at the border is exciting.
It is.
It is as a doctor, it is as a citizen, and also as a writer and as a politician. It's a very interesting and exciting place to stay, I think.
Well, clearly you spent 40 years up there.
Yeah, right.
You never want to sit still.
And then again, it's very good to come to Dublin and have a few pints and meet the lads again. And you're one of the lads, you know that.
I'm a token lad. Have been for a number of years. I was always one to hang out with the guys.
Yeah, right.
So if you had to look back over these 40 years, my goodness, that has passed under the bridge. Would you think there are some highlights you can think of, or challenges, or something you'd pass on? Or would you do it all again?
Oh, sure, I would do it all again. Yeah. No, I can't.
Would you encourage other people to come up to Kirkenes and expand your medical group?
Well, in that case, they have to learn the language first. If you want to, it's kind of hard to practice without knowing the language.
True.
But we have a lot of tourists coming up there to see the area. So yes, you're all welcome.
You have young Norwegian doctors who want to work up there.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah. Yes, but we're struggling. I mean, it's much more popular to find jobs in the big cities, So the periphery is struggling a bit. I guess you feel the same in America and in Ireland too.
Absolutely. Yeah. The workforce is getting older and a little tired.
Right.
And the youngsters are maybe not quite so willing to put in the same number of hours as we did. But hopefully...
would you have done the same again? If you wind back the clock 40 years and see, would you have...
Well, certainly in terms of sort of life and partner choice and family, that part of it. I didn't think I was going to end up in first world medicine, if you like. I thought when I went to medicine, I was a very altruistic young medical student, and I was going to be going to third world. I did. I went down to Malawi as a medical student. And I've been to Uganda since working with a neonatologist over there briefly. So it is strange how life is not that straight course that you might have determined when you were a child that it might be. And there are decisions made, but I'm very happy where I am. I have to say, I think once you carve out that little niche and, start not listening to all the voices out there telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing, but you just go, I need to do this. I knew I wanted to get married, I knew I wanted to have children, and I knew I wanted to have a career. So I had to work out in whatever format that was going to be, that this should happen. And yes, there were interruptions along the way. I had a twin pregnancy. I had, a year of moving with exams and things. So there were a couple of interruptions along the way. But it's, there is a saying that about the meaning of being lucky, and it's where opportunity meets preparation. And I think that's a very good definition of lucky. I feel like I've been very lucky overall in my life. But to some degree, it was where preparation met opportunity. And I think the training here allowed me that really sound transition over to places of excellence in New York, where I was able to just, I'm a worker. I'm a worker bee. I'm not, the super doctor or anything. I'm just, I like to do what I'm doing. I like to take care of the babies. I'm not running any shows anymore.
Right.
But I think it's, there are enough leaders in America sometimes. They all want to be leaders. Nobody wants to do the work.
Right.
I'll do the work.
Right. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it is. So it is, it's been a slightly different than I imagined it was going to be, but no less fulfilling. And maybe in retirement, I will have the opportunity. My husband's an anesthesiologist, so perhaps the two of us can do some foreign trips or missionary trips or whatever, when we retire. Because I think there are skills that you don't want to see go to waste for the want of age. These are skill sets we've worked on for the past 40 years, and it seems a pity to just sort of hang up the stethoscope and go lie on the beach or read a book. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm too much of an Energizer bunny.
No, I'm sure that your skills, your skills and Wally's skills will be very much needed, for instance, in a Red Cross hospital somewhere. I was in Bangladesh for a month. That was the last time I used my stethoscope.
Wonderful.
And of course, that's tough with Rohingya refugees in southeast Bangladesh. That's some years ago now, but I'm sure they could have needed a neonatologist and an anesthesiologist. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Useful, hopefully. What is retirement looking like for you? You said your grandfather. Are you thinking about themes for writing a book, or have you anything else in mind?
Oh, there is one more book coming up next year. Yeah.
You're working on one already?
Yeah. But that's just I put together. I've written a lot of small articles here and there, often in the kind of in the border zone between local history and medicine. So and it's altogether 30 or 40 small novels or histories. I'll just patch them together and publish them as a book.
Good for you.
With a little information about when the various chapters were published and at what time.
Collected writings.
Yes. So that's just good fun, And the point is, when I run my own publishing company, there is no one that stops me. If I want to publish a book, I can do that.
So you're a writer, author, editor, publisher. I like that.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah. And the boss.
That's the way to get the job done.
Yeah.
You're just the only one doing it.
But if I had wanted a publishing company to publish a book, they would of course read through it with a lot of criticism and give me feedback on that. And in many ways, that would probably have made the books better, because I'll have to try to sort all this out myself.
Draft 1 and draft 10 don't look the same.
And I use some friends, and I have some journalists and some historians here and there. So I try to get help as much as I can, but I'm sure that's the danger about publishing your own stuff. That you won't get it good enough and correct enough. But I think the book that you got now is
is a fine example.
Yeah, especially the third edition. Because then I have corrected all the mistakes from the first and second edition. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it and thinking about you up there. Tell me, would you encourage your children to go into medicine?
Yeah, I could. Now it's too late because one of them has become a doctor. She's a GP in Tromsø, and the other two have not. But I encouraged the oldest one when she asked, what do you think, Dad, should I be a doctor? And I said, go ahead. And she's very happy for that education, although she has long hours, you know, and I think she has never time off. But being a doctor is a good job, and it's exciting. And
never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment, and you make a difference for many people. So it's a lifestyle in many ways, but it's a good job. So I would recommend it for anyone. Did you tell your children the same?
Yeah, they didn't choose to. It is funny. We have a lot of doctors in my family. I have a brother, a doctor, and my father is a doctor, and my mother was a nurse, and my sister was a nurse, and they all worked at St. Vincent's Hospital, and I did not work at St. Vincent's Hospital until I got to New York, when my first job was St. Vincent's Hospital
really?
in New York City. It was funny. Yeah, I did my residency there. I would, you have to want to. I think if a child comes like this and said, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know that I would impose it. Obviously, you can't really impose it. I think to be a doctor comes from in here and here, but mostly here.
Right.
I think I always wanted to be a doctor. It's the only thing I ever said from when I was age 5. I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. So I think that was...
So what are your children doing then, if they're not doctors?
My son is an accountant, and my daughter is a musical theater conductor. Like, she's a director, musical director.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep, very musical. So music has always been part of my life. I attended Chatham Row, which is around the corner, the College of Music here, for many years. I had a piano teacher through 4th Med. I was still taking lessons. And to hear my daughter play so much better than I ever could, she's very talented. And my son is one of these very straightforward, he's logical and systematic. So I think accountancy actually suits him too. They've excellent work ethics, and that's what I'm feeling very pleased about. I think they're going to do great. They are doing great.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm happy they found something that will fulfill them. Yeah. I mean, I would encourage anybody. I have a nephew who's a doctor, so we encouraged him.
It's important that they have their own choices and that they don't feel obliged to follow some kind of family history. Or that you have to become a doctor.
Yeah.
I have seen examples of that which have not been very, very,
successful.
very good.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm stepping down now, so now I'll be grandfather most of the time. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be great.
Are you an indulgent grandfather?
Yeah, because the grandchildren don't live in Kirkenes, they live in other places where I have to travel to Tromsø and Trondheim to see them, and of course then I'll be with them 24 hours, and that's great. So
this is a side of you. I mean, when we were in medical school together, did I ever think we'd be sitting talking about your grandchildren?
Oh, it's a dessert of life, isn't that what they call it?
It is. It is. There's more behind us than ahead of us, so we prepare for that.
Yes.
Well, Harry, it has just been a treat. I am so happy we had this time to sit and hear about Kirkenes and a little bit about New York, and it's been wonderful seeing you again after so long. And we had a marvelous weekend with all of our friends and colleagues. Looking forward to the gala dinner tonight, and possibly getting together in another couple of years in Nuremberg or somewhere, but certainly back for the 45th.
Right.
Okay.
And thank you for choosing me here today, Helen. It's been a privilege to sit here and talk to you, and hopefully the viewers find it interesting too, but at least I did.
Well, I loved hearing about life in the dark. and the light.
And the light.
And the light. Thanks so much.
Thank you.